What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Draft Report. In today's video, we'll be talking about Illinois defensive tackle Jer'Zhan Newton. So let's get into it. Newton's biggest strength is his pass rush moves and his hand usage. Here, Newton's lined up in the 4-eye technique in between the guard and the tackle. And he does a great job using a chop move to force a pressure on the quarterback. So we break this down. We see out of his break, he's going to execute a little stutter move to make his blocker take a false step. And then as his blocker puts his hands out, he does a great job swiping his left hand to get his right hand away. And then as he gets to that inside shoulder, he's going to use that right hand and chop down the blocker's left hand, not letting him get into his frame. And then he's going to use that burst, get past his shoulder, and force a pressure. Here's another good chop move from Newton, this time beating the outside shoulder of a guard. So we see does a good job not only swiping the hands away immediately, but also chopping that left arm as he does get past the blocker. And then he also shows a pretty good ability to bend and flatten the arc for someone who's 300 pounds, even though he's not able to make the sack. On this play, Newton displays a good swipe and swim move. So we see he's lined up in between the guard and tackle again. He does a good job. As his blocker puts his hands out, he does a good job just swiping them away with the left hand. And then with the right hand, he's going to go over the top, and he's able to beat his blocker instantly, even though the running back comes in and helps block. No pressure is forced here, but shows his ability and his repertoire of moves. Swipe, swim over the top. Here's another example of that swipe, swim move. Here, Newton's lined up in that 3 technique again. This time he takes a little longer to set up as he does a little stutter step, but then he does a good job. Even though this defender has longer arms, he does a good job swiping him away, not letting him get into his chest plate, and then he's going to finish his move by swimming over the top for the pressure. Newton also shows very good counters when blockers are able to defeat his first move. Here, he's lined up right over the center, and he's going to stun outside. He does a good job swiping the center's hands away, and then also swiping the guard's hands away, but the longer guard's able to get that hand onto his chest plate. But then Newton does a great job hand fighting, and then getting his hand detached to rip up and under for the sack. Newton's best move might be this rip move, as he uses it very well to finish plays when either bull rushing or when defenders or blockers are able to get contact on him. As you see here, it takes a little bit to set up, but he does a great job using that motor, continuing to fight, releasing that hand, and then ripping underneath for the sack. Newton can also win with power and just bull rushes defenders back into the quarterback. Here he's lined up in the 4-eye on the tackle's shoulder, and he does a great job getting off the ball quick, good hands, quick hands. This longer guard isn't able to get contact first. He does a good job with good hand placement, using his natural leverage advantage to just push his blocker back, puts his blocker on his back, and then is able to force a pressure and cause an incompletion. Here's another good bull rush. Here he is lined up in between the guard and tackle again. And he's going to do a good job again. Good hands. Able to get contact on first and then control this rep, send his blocker flying, and force a pressure. While Newton's great as a pass rusher, he also uses his hands very well in run defense. Here, this is going to be a straight run up the middle, and this guard is going to try to push Newton out of this gap. But Newton does a great job exploding off the ball, coming out with good hands, good pad level, gets contact first, and then is able to control this rep. And as the ball carrier gets the ball, he's able to shed off this block and make a tackle at the line of scrimmage. On this play, he shows his quickness as a run defender. Here he is. And they're going to try to double team him with this guard and this center. And he does a great job just immediately off the snap, using his hands to rip past the guard and then explodes into that gap for a TFL. Newton is also a very smart run defender. So we see here he's lined up as 4-eye technique again, and this guard is going to try to pull as they're all trying to pull this way to open up this gap, and Newton does a great job off the ball recognizing this and then just bursting into the backfield for this tackle for loss. While Newton is a very smart and refined player, a lot of his skills can get wiped out by his lack of length. He's listed at 6'2", 295, but I think he's closer to 6 foot than he is to 6'2", and he also has very short arms, which makes it very hard for him to get first contact and win with his strength. As we see here, he's lined up in between the tackle and guard again, and this guard's able to just completely wash him out of this play. Newton does a good job coming off the ball. He's a little slow off the ball, and then that causes his hands to be a little late. This longer defender or blocker is able to just get first contact and completely push him out of the way, clearing a gap for his running back. And this happens a lot to Newton against bigger and longer players. He just doesn't have the mass or length to win at the point of attack like some other defensive tackles. Here's another example of that. He's kind of hard to see right here, but he's lined up outside the tackle and the tight end. And on the snap, he just comes off a little late, and this blocker is able to get good leverage and just push him downfield. He's playing with too wide of a base here, which also hurts his leverage, and he just gets pushed off the ball, not able to make a play. His lack of length also hurts him as a power rusher sometimes. Here he is lined up as a 4 technique right over the tackle, and he's going to stunt outside, and he's going to try to just bull rush this tackle, but this longer tackle is just able to get immediate hands on, even though the hand placement from the tackle is a little outside on the shoulder pads. It just completely stymies any attempt at a bull rush, and he just has no leg push. So overall, Newton is a very refined and smart player, but he lacks a lot of size that can come to hurt him both as a power rusher and defending the run. But his repertoire of moves is so far beyond his years. Someone who's 21 years old should not have the ability to win with a chop, a rip, a swipe, a swim. He can just win in all ways as a speed rusher, and also, when connected, he has very good lower body strength and natural leverage ability to win with bull rushes, but he just can't win most of the time due to his lack of length, as blockers can just get contact on him first. But when he does make first contact, he's a very powerful player, and he has inconsistent get off, but when he does get off the ball, he does have the ability to get out of his stance pretty quick. But I would like to see him be a little more consistent in that aspect, because he does come off with late hands and he's laid off the ball a lot, which hurts him, especially because he does lack that length and needs to be perfect when it comes to his hand placement and usage and everything. And then as a run defender, I really like his motor and how smart he is. He really understands gaps and run concepts and everything, but again, bigger defenders or blockers can just push him out of the way and win battles so easily because he does lack length and mass. And then as a power rusher, he just lacks in that area too. But overall, I think his hands make him just a pretty easy day one starter that can contribute to a very good NFL team as soon as he steps in the league, because he is so refined and he's at a NFL veteran level when it comes to his hand usage and pass rush plan and everything. And then in run defense, he does a good job stacking and shedding and getting off blocks when he does get beat. And I like how, even though he's only probably 6'1", that gives him a natural leverage advantage to really get under defenders and push upwards, which can help in run defense and power rushing. So overall, I think he's a solid player that should be picked in the top 15, 20 picks. He's a 6.73 on my 8-point scale, and that puts him in a day one quality starter, a mid-first round pick. But I just think his lack of length and his physical limitations will really cap his ceiling, because he's not that big and he's also not some explosive athlete. He's a good athlete, like above average for the position, but I don't think he's anything special, you know. He does show good bend and agility for someone who's 300 pounds, and his straight line speed's decent. He reminds me a lot of Kalijah Cansey from last year's draft class, he was even smaller than Newton, but he was more explosive. But they both are very good as pass rushers. I think Newton will be a little better than Cansey was, just because he has that extra length and mass, but he's not as explosive as an athlete, as I mentioned. But Cansey had a solid rookie year, was above average defending the run and put up, I think, 4 or 5 sacks, only playing mostly late in the year. So I think Newton can be a 6-7 sack a year guy, put up some good tackle for loss numbers, but just won't ever be like a Pro Bowl type guy because of his size limitations. But I'd be willing to select him within the top 15, 20 picks, because you know what you're getting. But I think he does need to be in a 4-3 scheme, because he cannot play nose tackle in a 3-4. He needs to be a 3 tech. So I think he's pretty scheme dependent, needs to be in a 4-3. So a lot of teams just won't have him on their board because he won't fit their system. So I think he could fall into the late first, maybe even the second round, if there aren't teams that are willing to select him. But overall, a very good player, but nothing elite in my opinion. So that's going to wrap up the video. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.